The 1967 romantic comedy, The Graduate, directed by Mike Nichols and written by Buck Henry, is based on a novel of the same name. This film not only propelled Dustin Hoffman to stardom, but has also been consistently analyzed as a reflection of the political, social, and sexual shifts of the era. The Graduate explores the generation gap between parents and children, delves into the pressures of parental expectations, and highlights the emerging sexual openness of that year. In many ways, Benjamin Braddock, the central character, represented almost every college graduate of that time. However, this movie could have turned out very differently. The iconic Simon and Garfunkel theme song we all know almost didn't happen, and Dustin Hoffman almost didn't get the part. The famous poster image that everyone recognizes isn't what it seems, and Anne Bancroft is not as scandalous a lover for Dustin Hoffman as we were led to believe. One curious detail is that all the adults in this movie are nameless. Benjamin Braddock and his friends have first names, but every adult is referred to only as Mr. or Mrs. Even after Benjamin sleeps with Mrs. Robinson, he never calls her by her first name. This is seen as a clear sign of the generational divide that was so prevalent at the time. As for the ages of the actors, the numbers portrayed in the film are completely off. Anne Bancroft was only 6 years older than Dustin Hoffman, which is hard to believe because she looks much older in the movie, partly due to Hoffman's youthful appearance. They were supposed to be a generation apart. Initially, Gene Hackman was cast as Mr. Robinson, but he was fired shortly after production began because the director felt Hackman was too young to play Mrs. Robinson's husband. Catherine Ross and Dustin Hoffman were both in their late 20s at the time of filming, which made them a bit too old to be playing college kids. The production company had contracted Paul Simon to write several songs for the movie, but the 2 songs he submitted to Mike Nichols were immediately rejected. These songs appeared on Simon and Garfunkel's 1968 album, Bookends, with one being Hazy Shade of Winter and the other Punky's Dilemma. The director had been using The Sound of Silence as a placeholder while editing the film's audio. After a while, he decided the song fit perfectly with the film and bought the rights to use it in key scenes. The song appears 3 times in the movie, but the director still needed another song. Garfunkel came up with a solution. He had been working on a song called Miss Roosevelt. The director convinced the singers to change it to Mrs. Robinson. The character of Benjamin in the novel and screenplay was described as a tall, handsome Californian, not a short Jewish kid from New York like Dustin Hoffman. Robert Redford was considered for the role, and there's no doubt he better fit the image of Benjamin. However, the director didn't want Redford because he felt there was no way Redford could play a loser, as he likely never had trouble with girls in his life. At the time, Dustin Hoffman was virtually an unknown actor, earning only $17,000 for his role in The Graduate. After taxes and expenses, it's reported that he made about $4,000 from the project. Although he could have earned much more, Hoffman stood firm on his artistic principles. Before proving his talent, the studio required him to sign a multi-picture deal, which Hoffman refused, as he didn't want the studio to have that much control over his career. After filming Wrapped, Hoffman returned to New York, deposited about $3,000 in the bank, and then filed for unemployment, receiving between $45 and $50 a week, while the production company edited the movie that would make him a star. As a young actor, he had worked steadily in theater and television throughout the 1960s, but he hadn't yet had a major film hit. His big break was supposed to be in The Producers, a Mel Brooks film being made at the same time as The Graduate. Hoffman turned down the role in Mel Brooks's production, opting for what he thought was a bigger opportunity, especially given that Mel Brooks's wife, Anne Bancroft, was already cast as Mrs. Robinson. One scene that has sparked much speculation is the wedding in the church, where some have interpreted a reference to the crucifixion of Christ. However, this was not the case. The image of Benjamin spreading his arms across the church window as he tries to stop Elaine's wedding doesn't have religious connotations. Initially, the idea was for Benjamin to pound his fist on the glass to get Elaine's attention. But the church minister overseeing the filming insisted that no pounding on the glass would be allowed, so Hoffman instead spread his arms against the window, suggesting urgency without causing any damage. The author of the novel, Charles Webb, modeled the character of Benjamin after himself, including his distaste for his parents' wealth. Webb, the son of a successful San Francisco doctor, published The Graduate in 1963. According to Webb, both Benjamin and Elaine were inspired by him and his wife, and there was no Mrs. Robinson in his life. The central idea was that Benjamin had an anti-materialistic attitude toward life. Webb sold the film rights to The Graduate for $20,000, a mere pittance, considering how valuable it would become later. He donated all his royalties to charity and even turned down an inheritance from his father. This film could have looked quite different. We might have seen Burt Ward, who was becoming famous as Robin, the boy wonder in TV's Batman, in the lead role. Ward was offered the lead by the producer, but the idea was shot down by the bosses behind Batman because the show was so successful that they didn't want to dilute the character by having him play a different role. The iconic image of Benjamin looking at Mrs. Robinson's leg stretched across the frame doesn't even need a tagline to identify the movie. Even if you've never seen the film, you recognize the poster. But, ironically, that isn't Anne Bancroft's leg. The leg belongs to a model who was unknown at the time and was paid $25 for the shot. That model, though unknown then, would later rise to fame as Sue Ellen Ewing on the TV show Dallas. Yes, that leg belonged to Linda Gray. She was a struggling actress and model at the time and took the opportunity to earn an extra $25. For years, most people assumed the leg in the poster was Anne Bancroft's. This story of a 21-year-old college graduate with no clear interests or direction in life, who is seduced by an older married woman and then becomes obsessed with her daughter, was released in December 1967. The film was a critical and commercial success. It grossed $104 million, becoming the highest-grossing film of 1967 worldwide. It received 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and 1 for Best Director. Many have ranked this film as one of the most important and greatest films of all time. I'm not sure I would go that far. It's a fun movie to watch, but there's an oddity to it that I can't quite explain. I'm truly not sure if it deserves to be ranked as the 17th greatest American film of all time. It's just not there in my book. It's a fun movie, so check it out if you've never seen it, or if you have seen it, rewatch it. You'll see some great performances in it. Here we finish. Thank you for your attention. Like and subscribe, as there are many interesting things ahead. Good luck.